Hey guys, what is up? It is me, Pagey, here once again with another video on just the Arrowverse as a whole, because there's another new edition and they just keep adding to it. It's pretty crazy, and it's falling in line with what's been happening over the past past year, not just like the past couple of weeks with some of the other editions, but the past year roughly. So it's pretty interesting. We're going to dive into it, but I just have to start off by saying it's pretty interesting, and I'm just intrigued to see where they go from here if they follow the same trend, and I'll discuss that trend and explain the trend when we bring up this news. So of course, in the past bit, we've had a few potential spin-offs announced, with the Painkiller spin-off from Black Lightning, as well as the Wonder Girls new show coming out with the Yara Flor Wonder Girl, who hasn't even appeared in the comics up until last week. They released like a future state pre-comic thing, and she's in there, but she's in there as Wonder Woman, I think, not even Wonder Girl. But of course, we did know that Black Lightning and Supergirl would be ending this season, so those two shows, naturally, you'd think would just be replaced by these two new shows, which made sense. But hold on, there was another knock at the door, and I was like, hello, knock, 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 let me in, I'm another new show. You know, let's have a little bit of a discussion and see if I'm in the works for next season as well. So I think it was, I don't know if it was Deadline or TV Line, or if it was just a general press release. No one got the exclusive. Not too sure. But there's a new show that's been announced for the CW, for the Arrowverse. And it's got a pretty big person behind it, which is pretty interesting. So I'm just going to go through the Deadline article now, and we'll discuss it. So Ava DuVernay is doubling down on DC Comics IP for her latest television project, an adaptation of teen superhero story Naomi. DuVernay, who is set to direct the feature film adaptation of DC's New Gods, is developing the drama for the CW. She has teamed with Arrow writer and co-executive producer Jill Blankenship to write and executive produce the project. Now, pause here for a second. Another reason that this is actually a fairly big announcement is the fact that Jill Blankenship was meant to be one of the showrunners for Green Arrow and the Canaries. So the fact that she's attached to this makes you think that Green Arrow and the Canaries would be officially dead. You'd have to think so. Not even just the fact that this new show has been announced and there's still been nothing about Green Arrow and the Canaries, but the fact that one of the producers on that, or one of the showrunners on that show, is now working on this and going to be like co-writing and co-producing and stuff like that. You would have to think, well, that doesn't really spell great news for Green Arrow and the Canaries, but there still hasn't been an official announcement about it, so who knows? Maybe they might officially announce it in like a couple of weeks. Yeah, it's not happening, but Guggenheim's left the CW as well. It doesn't seem the actors are even talking about it anymore, so who knows? I wish they would just make an announcement so people just stop asking for it, or, you know, say that it's coming. Like, make a decision, please. It's annoying. Anyway. So the show of Naomi will follow a teen girl's journey from her small northwestern town to the heights of the multiverse. When a supernatural event shakes her hometown to the core, Naomi sets out to uncover its origins, and what she discovers will challenge everything we believe about our heroes. So I'm very interested to see if this actually folds into the greater Arrowverse as a whole. Like, is she from another Earth in this new multiverse? Is this where it allows to play out? Or is it a completely separate story that won't involve The Flash and all these other shows? I'm intrigued, because I'll jump into what Naomi's story and power set is roughly in a second. But it could be a very interesting series and how they play it out and whether it folds into everything or not. But anyway, Naomi is based on the comic book series that only debuted in 2019, so last year, which, as I said, folds into some of the recent trends we've seen with some of these new shows being announced. But anyway, it was co-written by Brian Michael Bendis and David F. Walker, and illustrated by breakout artist Jamal Campbell. Jamal Campbell has done a couple of, been a thing in regards to art with a couple of big new characters recently, so he's attached to them. It will be produced by DuVernay's Array Filmworks in association with Warner Brothers TV. Sarah Bremner and Phil Garnis will produce for Array Filmworks. So this is not a Berlanti thing. So it's not a Berlanti production. It's not in line with pretty much every other pretty much all the other Arrowverse shows. So it's very different, which makes you think that will it actually fold into the Arrowverse because it's not part of the Berlanti stuff. That's for us to wait and find out. That's the only thing that makes me think that it might not fold in there, but who knows. But just quickly before we jump into Naomi as a character as a whole, Ava DuVernay did tweet this out, and she pretty much said that New Gods is still happening. She said, Big Barda, Z Hernandez, who's the character from DMZ, the other DC comic shows he's working on for HBO Max, and now Naomi, are like talking about all those characters and stuff like that. So she pretty much says like New Gods are still happening. Like if she didn't think New Gods was going to happen, she probably wouldn't have put that tweet out. And I think New Gods will still happen. I think it's just one of the things where it just has to find a place to fall in line. You know, New Gods is a very cool project, and I think a lot of people will want to see it, especially DC fans. So I think that will still happen. But anyway, on to Naomi as a character. So Naomi as a character is from like a alternate area in DC, in like the multiverse. She's not really from like the main sort of universe, if you want to call it, but essentially something happened to her Earth where it just became completely covered in radiation. So what happens is that no one was actually wiped out from the radiation. It wasn't like a nuclear bomb and all these people died and stuff like that. It was just covered in radiation, and a certain amount of people were given these powers. Now Naomi actually wasn't one of these 29 people. However, her parents were two of these people, so she was the first person to actually be born with two of their parents being one of these gifted 29 individuals. But before that, there'd been this I don't know if we want to call it like a warlord or something like that, but this warlord that was a part of like this war between all these people and stuff like that, and this warlord made it their mission to kill Naomi, as Naomi was this like special person who was born of two gifted, powered people from this radiation thing. Now, the interesting that happens after this, so this is where it could fold into the Arrowverse. Now, whether it happens or not, or the show takes its own route and figures out its own Earth to make, is what we'll have to wait and see. But in the comics, she's moved to a different Earth in the multiverse to be safe from everything that's going on, moving from this Earth. So she has her powers, which we'll jump into in a second, but she moves completely to a new Earth, and the Earth she moves to is Earth Prime, if you want to call it, like the main Earth in the DC Comics universe. So if this happens on the show, if they do the exact same thing and move her, you would have to assume that she moves to the same Earth as the Flash, Batwoman, all these other shows, Superman and Lois, Legends, I guess, where Supergirl and Black Lightning would have taken place, Arrow would have taken place, where Wonder Girl will presumably take place. That's where she will move. That's what you'd have to think if they're going to follow that. Now, as I said, the big thing is that this show isn't being produced by Berlanti and everything like that. However, one of the people that's working on the show has worked on the Arrowverse for years and years and years, so we'll have to wait and see. It hasn't really been said whether it's set in the Arrowverse or not, but as I said, the story doesn't start there, in the comics at least, so it'll be interesting to see if it folds over or not. We'll have to wait and see. I'm very, very curious. Now, in regards to her power set, I think, just to give you like a visual representation, I think a good way to put it would be something like a Captain Marvel from DC, not Shazam, Captain Marvel from like Marvel. Very similar to that, like almost like a, very similar to that. You can, like, she can fly and various things like that. It's like energy projection and like light projection, various things like that. Almost like you can even argue like a Starlight from, is it Starlight from The Boys? Various things like that. So she's got a very interesting power set, and I'm interested. I'd be very, very intrigued to see where they would take this character. She's not like, she doesn't have like one thing. Like, she's still got a good amount of appearances. I think she was in the I think Brian Michael Bendis put her in the Young Justice series as well. So I'm curious to see where they would take her, who they cast as well, because they can make her a younger character, or they can make her in the mid-20s, or they probably make her like anywhere from like a 16 to like a 19-year-old on the show. I think that's where they would probably go, but it's up to them. The story would probably allow them just to go like to a 16 or 19-year-old, but they could go a bit older if they wanted to, especially if they wanted to make it that maybe she's been living on Earth for a couple of years, maybe hiding, and maybe something makes her come out of the shell and go, I need to fight. I don't know, something like that. But yeah, this falls in line with the CW adopting shows for fairly new characters, whether they haven't even been in the comics as of yet, or they've only been in the comics for a while, like only for like a year or so. So they've been picking up some new stuff. Obviously, Yara Flor Wonder Girl hadn't even been in the comics yet when she was announced. Ryan Walder, same, has now appeared in one issue, but that's it. And now Naomi, who's only been there for a bit as well. So they're not dealing with characters who have 20, 30, 40, 60 years of history. They're dealing with fairly new characters where they can add to the story. And they're not just retelling the stories from the comics, they're adding to the stories. But yeah, I'm sure we'll hear more about this in the next few months as they head into developing the show and probably filming the pilot and everything like that. Very curious to see what it is. I think it actually could be very, very cool. Hopefully I've explained it in a way where you understand why it could be cool and how it could, not start in the Arrowverse, but then fold into the Arrowverse at a later time. I think it'd be pretty cool. And you got some good people behind it as well. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see how it turns out. But thanks for watching, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, it'd be awesome if you could drop a like on it to show support. Let me know in the comment section down below your various opinions on it. Are you looking forward to this? Are you curious about it? Let me know all that in the comment section down below. And of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe. And I will catch you guys later. Goodbye.